Hi there, David.
Hi.
I want to talk to you about two of the big unfolding stories coming out of the United States, beginning with the unfolding immigration protests where the US President Donald Trump has deployed the National Guard. Firstly, what are people protesting about? What was the catalyst for these demonstrations?
The catalyst for the demonstrations in Los Angeles was some sweeping raids carried out by ICE, which is this enforcement agency for Donald Trump's rather draconian immigration policy. ICE are the people who round up suspected illegal immigrants. And what we've seen since January is some very rough and aggressive measures by them, in some cases snatching people off the streets, putting them in detention without due process. Some people have been shipped overseas, even to a prison in El Salvador. And there seemed to be a particular crackdown in Los Angeles in the last 2 or 3 days. And people took to the streets to protest about that. And those demonstrations quickly escalated. In some moments, they did become violent, with people throwing rocks and fireworks and so on at law enforcement. And because of that spiral, we saw a government crackdown, ultimately including Donald Trump signing an order to send in the National Guard, which is very rare when a state governor has not asked for it.
Donald Trump has claimed that LA is being invaded and occupied, and he's called the protesters violent insurrectionists. How would you describe what is happening, and what do you make of the president's use of this sort of language?
I think there is a public uprising against a very hardline government. And, you know, we are approaching in mid-June the 10th anniversary of Donald Trump trundling down that escalator at Trump Tower in New York, declaring his run for president. And that speech that day was all about immigration, building a wall on the southern border, and demonizing Mexicans as criminals and rapists and drug dealers. And what we've seen over the past decade is that remain the central issue of Trump and Trumpism. It's certainly played a big part in last year's election campaign. And now, so far, we've seen that very draconian stance in the second Trump term. And I think perhaps surprisingly, we haven't seen as many protests and demonstrations directly as we expected, or certainly not grabbing the headlines so much. But it was only a matter of time. And of course, Los Angeles, California is a Democratic stronghold, a progressive liberal bastion. People decided enough was enough and stood up and said, not in our name. And in terms of Trump's language, I think that's the classic playbook that he uses. And we've seen it with other authoritarians. You know, he will set out to demonize these protesters as rebels and insurrectionists and violent and a threat to the state. And the phrase he was using last year and will continue to use is this is the enemy within.
David, what is the National Guard? We don't have a National Guard. Can you talk to us about it and how rare it is for the president to deploy it against protesters?
And the National Guard is basically a reserve military, and it can be called upon to help out with natural disasters, for example, like hurricanes. It was mobilized to some extent in 2020 during the summer protests after the police murder of George Floyd, and we saw the Black Lives Matter demonstrations. In the 1990s, the National Guard was mobilized again in Los Angeles during those riots, but that was at the request of the state. What's very rare and unusual about this is Trump has gone ahead and done it without the request, against the wishes of State Governor Gavin Newsom, who's a Democrat. And experts say this is the first time in 60 years the national government has basically federalized the National Guard, sent them in without a state requesting it. And I think that, again, shows Donald Trump's authoritarian reflexes and his desire to turn a state governor like Gavin Newsom into an opponent, into a boogeyman.
As we record this, we're hearing that the National Guard has been using tear gas or pepper balls against protesters. The Defence Secretary, Pete Hegseth, has threatened to deploy the US military. What's been the reaction to the way that the Trump administration is handling this?
Trump's own party, the Republicans, unsurprisingly, are cheering it on, and they see the political upside for Trump of demonizing both immigrants and protesters, and how well that plays with the Trump or Make America Great Again base, which is all about othering and blaming immigrants for society's ills. Equally unsurprisingly, the Democratic Party have condemned this. The California Governor Gavin Newsom suggested really, Trump is trying to make a spectacle here, and he knows the protesters, don't allow him that to happen. He warned that, what Trump is doing will actually escalate the situation, make things worse. And some other Democrats, I think, have been making interesting points about how Trump is doing this as a divide and rule strategy, as a way to deflect concerns from his policies on the economy and so on, and really following an authoritarian playbook of looking for an excuse to suspend the rule of law, to militarize the response, to crack down on civil rights and demonstrations.
I did read some comments from the Senator Bernie Sanders, who says that the president is moving the country rapidly towards authoritarianism. David, obviously that is still an unfolding story, but I do want to turn now to the feud between Donald Trump and Elon Musk. Two of the world's most powerful men have had a pretty spectacular falling out in public. Many speculated that this would happen. Are you surprised that their relationship or friendship lasted this long?
Not at all. No, I think it's the least surprising story of the year. And I think, these two issues we're talking about, they are connected in that Trump's crackdown in Los Angeles is partly because he is a master of distraction. And Musk is making some pretty negative headlines for him. And what better to move on from that than the spectacle of violence and scapegoating and rallying his troops around the cause of illegal immigration and stamping it out. Trump and Musk it was always a political marriage of convenience. There were some ideological differences going back. Musk used to be a Trump critic, but he jumped on board last year. He spent a record more than $270 million helping get Trump elected. That's unprecedented. That's an all-time record in US politics. What was in it for him? He seemed to like Trump's stance on wokeness, on this idea of liberals had become too obsessed with identity politics and gender pronouns and so on. And Musk really embraced this idea of the Trump machismo, the manosphere, the masculine values. On a more rudimentary level, I think Musk also spotted a business opportunity here that Trump would suspend some of the investigations into Musk's companies, could be pretty generous with contracts, for example, with SpaceX and Tesla potentially. They saw it as a win-win. But from the moment Musk really got into the Trump sphere and was showing up at Mar-a-Lago all the time, we certainly did predict that two gigantic egos of this size could not coexist for so long. And he lasted about 130 days, but then sure enough, we did get the detonation. And even though we knew it was coming, it was still pretty spectacular. It was still, Godzilla versus King Kong.
Let's talk about that. When did cracks first begin to appear, and how have things deteriorated over recent days?
Well, there are all sorts of theories about this in Washington, this great unraveling and how it happened. I think the first real sign of trouble was when Elon Musk started arranging private briefings at the Pentagon, including on the scenario of what happened if the US goes to war with China. And even for Trump, who'd given Musk a lot of latitude, this was a bridge too far. And even he could see the political problems that, hang on, Musk has business interests in China. There could clearly be some conflicts here. But then there are other factors too. Musk, I think, wanted to stick around after his time as a special government employee finished after 130 days. And he put up so many backs, and there are stories about even physical altercations with cabinet members that wasn't going to happen. As he was departing, Trump's choice for the administrator of NASA got cancelled. He was a Trump ally. I think he saw that as a personal slight. And publicly, at least, the real rift has opened up over the flagship legislation that Trump is trying to push through Congress right now. It's dubbed the One Big Beautiful Bill, and typically Trumpian language. It's effectively a massive national budget. All sorts of people have all sorts of criticisms of it. Some share Musk's view that it would hugely add to the national debt, which is already about $37 trillion. I mean, mind-boggling numbers. Musk believed that would undercut the work he was doing at DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency. And perhaps more personally, this legislation also kills off brakes for electric vehicles, credits for electric vehicles, which, of course, directly affects Musk's company Tesla. So that was why, having had an Oval Office send-off that seemed cordial, just a few days later, Musk went on his X platform and really launched the first salvo in this fight.
And it has played out very publicly and in a rather juvenile way. Elon Musk posted to X that Donald Trump is in the Epstein files. He later deleted that post. How has the White House responded to that allegation?
Yeah, after amidst all the back and forth, Musk said, time to go nuclear, drop the big bomb with this Jeffrey Epstein allegation. Epstein, of course, convicted sex offender, who's no longer alive. Trump's people eventually got Epstein's lawyer to release a statement saying that the lawyer had talked to Epstein about the Trump allegations and there was nothing in it. He said the lawyer specifically asked Epstein about Trump and there was no guilt, no involvement of Trump in that. I think some of Trump's critics still wonder. Certainly Musk was pushing videos of Trump and Epstein together. But yeah, a very firm and vehement denial from the White House and Trump on that one. Elon
Musk is the world's wealthiest person. He's having this very public feud with the US president. What do you see as the ramifications of this? Where do you see this ending, David?
Yeah, still hard to say. Musk is such mercurial, unpredictable figure. I would not be entirely surprised if he declares all-out war on Trump and tries to create his own political party and tries to tear Trump down. I would be equally unsurprised if he meekly apologizes and comes back cap in hand and says, sorry, it was all a mistake, and I still love Trump, and you can almost imagine they would love the spectacle, the drama of the sort of the White House reunion of them getting back together, and certainly there are aides on both sides and supporters of both men who say, oh gosh, this is like our parents squabbling and fighting, and we want to see Donald and Elon kiss and make up. And I think in this struggle, Trump has the upper hand. He is still totally in control of the Republican Party. He's won 2 presidential elections. He commands greater loyalty there than ever. He's still got all the tools of government at his disposal. Sure, Republicans are grateful to Elon Musk for pouring in hundreds of millions of dollars last year, but he's still a bit of a Johnny-come-lately. He's still a bit of an interloper in the party. He doesn't really have a constituency. And, to an extent, Musk can hurt Trump. He's the world's richest man. He's got X, a very influential social media platform. He can potentially, win some battles of ideas and attention, if you like. But probably the smart money is still on Trump. he could, as he's threatened, start to take away some of Elon Musk's government contracts. He could reopen investigations into Musk's companies that were suspended when Trump took office. There are even Trump allies, urging him to try and expel Musk from the country, deport him, investigate him for crimes, all sorts of things. I think it's perhaps a sad statement that many of us now hear that and shrug and think, well, of course, yeah, Trump might do that. And let's just pause for a moment and recognize the selfishness, the corruption, the lack of political values there that, these people might just investigate each other or go at each other for petty personal reasons with so little regard for the rule of law and the normal guardrails.
And Donald Trump is now warning that Elon Musk will face, quote, very serious consequences if he turns around and funds Democrat candidates. David, thank you so much for taking us through all of that.
Thank you.